And good morning. It's your brother, Greg Meriweather. Welcome to No Apologies, Please, acronym N.A.P. And it's another beautiful morning, man. We're going to have a great show today. I got a brother lined up, man. I've been knowing the young brother for some time now. He's a hardworking brother, stays in the community a lot. He has a lot of titles, community conduit, ecosystem builder, food justice expert, youth advocate. He's currently the director of community access and engagement for 16 Tech. This brother has deep-rooted community lineage, and just I cannot stress to you how hard of a worker this brother is, and I'm just excited to have him come and talk to us, man, and just share some of his knowledge and wisdom and understanding, and just hear what he thinks. And so, man, without further ado, man, I'm gonna bring my brother to the table. It's Sibeko Jywanza, man. How you doing, brother?
Hey, greetings. Can you hear me, bro?
I can hear you perfectly, my brother.
That's what's up, bro.
How you been, man?
Man, so it's been a tough year, man. The year been going off, and a lot of important things have happened. A lot of things with community, but just I feel like a lot of people have been going through some real tough times this first quarter of the year, man. So
yeah, no, my condolences, brother. I know exactly where you're coming from, and that's. I have to say I've only lost my father. My mom is still here, so I can partly speak on that, but I can only imagine how you're feeling at the beginning of the year. And so my love goes out to you and your family as it relates to that.
yeah, I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah. So, man, tell me, man, you still over at N.A.P 16 Tech doing your thing?
16 Tech Innovation District, man, going on my third year, bro. So it's been a nice journey over there, man.
Yeah, tell me about it. What's been going on? I've been seeing a lot of action.
So the main reason for the district is to attract different talent in Indiana, particularly in the innovation spaces. And we have this community commitment there that I'm in charge of that just allows people to understand that connection between community and development and initiatives that happen in the city. And to be honest, man, we've been getting a lot of love. The AMP, our food hall, has been getting more and more people coming to our vendors. Those vendors who are so diverse. I mean, you got like over 50% of the vendors there where you can't get that food anywhere else in the city.
Nice.
And with that diverse minority ownership, staying true, being purposeful for that too, making sure that there's entrepreneurs, some from right around the corner of our area, serving some of the healthiest food that we got in there. Corey, food architect, does vegan alkaline food in Tawana with Healthy Soul. She does that hibachi grill piece, and that's some of the healthiest food that you can get in there. And both of them are from right around the corner of where 16 Tech is. But not only that, serving up our entrepreneurs with that co-working space, our makers with that maker space. So if y'all haven't checked out 16 Tech, check that out, please.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. It's been good, though.
I love it. And after this, man, we'll have to convene because excuse me. I'd love to get some of those vendors on the show so we can showcase them and definitely let people know that there are some people doing some great work out there. When I was over there, man, I look in there and I see the you see the entrepreneurial spirit. You see a lot of great vendors. Spending some time with the leadership over there. One of my questions to you is this: as that area changes, what do you see? Because that area is changing drastically, and I know there's been a committee and a board that was put together kind of just to focus on that. But what do you see happening as that community starts to change? And I mean that by way of gentrification.
So yeah, you have so many different initiatives happening in the city at the same time right now, and I try to keep my pulse on a lot of things, not only with my professional work but my civic work through the Young Professionals with the Urban League and through two boards that I sit on for the city of Indianapolis, dealing with food, and then dealing with public safety. Department of Public Works. So I'm seeing how a lot of things are shifting, and I've lived and worked in that area for the past 10 years. So I've been a part of these great these initiatives that named them the Near Northwest and the Near West, which is Hallville area, the Riverside area. Once you start putting these designations on areas, they become so popular that you have to watch who's actually owning the land that's around there. And one of the things when it comes to development that we are fearful of as a community is, one, whether or not housing is going to be demolished. We don't necessarily have that fear as much as they did back in the 70s and the 60s when my father was fighting the I-65 destruction of the communities with the building of I-65. But what you do have now is the value of your property and what that looks like. Now, it's different if you own your property versus if you rent your property, right? You have no control over it either way. But if you're renting, you're pretty much on a fixed income. I would say, because you either that's the lifestyle you want to live, or you want to go towards home ownership. And if you're owning, depending on what your work life is like, if you're in retirement age and things like that, and you're on a fixed income, all that stuff going up just means that you're going to have to change your lifestyle, earn more money. One thing about a district like 16 Tech, we did not have to take anybody's housing or destroy anybody's neighborhoods in order for development to happen, like how, our university did for our highway. But the attraction of different groups, like development groups, like different companies and things like that, that's what you got to kind of look at. And then as we're doing these cultural trails and the Riverside Promenade, and then that Riverside Park master plan, you have so many different initiatives going on in that area at the same time. And all of that is about development, which equals gentrification. Gentrification is all about developing an area. And it's developing an area for people to have a better quality of life. The problem is when there's people who have historically been there that get displaced because of that and don't get to enjoy those things. So, we are attractors for people who are very hungry for that next spot in that area downtown. All the areas downtown have been designated. I mean, you're going to have the South Side now being developed in a similar way for the past 10 years that the West Side has been developed because of that Indy 11 Stadium and some of the things with Elanco and businesses that are happening over there. So you're seeing it shift to the South Side now. And those housing pieces are there. Now, if we have everybody who wants to keep a house, we're not talking about any problems. We're just talking about development. We're just talking about people enjoying that. But once you start having people having to either sell or move out because it starts getting too expensive for them to even own. And then you're talking about issues with generational families having to move from their home spot. And you got first your family was repping West Side, now it's repping East Side, now it's repping wherever you can afford.
So think on this. So if you're looking at the screen, I just pulled up two homes. This is at 2136 Sugar Grove Avenue, Indianapolis 46202. This is a home that's $269,000. The one to the right is at 2110 North Dexter Street in Indianapolis 46202. It's 1,856 square feet. That home is $369,000. So when you see that, tell me your thought.
Well, you see a drastic change in terms of even early 2000s of how much housing, the quality of housing, and how much it costs. Right, like those two things. Like you can build something, and now the average is going to be about $300,000 to $400,000 if it's a new build. When you get into a home, like comparing that to what it was maybe 20 years ago is one thing. Comparing the range of what it was 20 years ago versus how much people are making is probably that's the focused kind of aspect on a system-wide basis. Like, are people making as much as the inflation for the housing? And if
Probably
there's a
not.
skewed version right there, then
Yeah.
there, that's we have and we're going to have a bigger issue when it comes to housing, particularly with the unhoused and those who are not renters or homeowners. But generationally, who's going to own these properties? Not necessarily who lives in them. I think
Yeah. Who
we're more
owns them?
concerned about who owns them, right?
Yeah.
And who has the ability to be able to continually keep up with the rehab for these new builds. And the area is being developed in such a way that it's not like we're on the end of that cusp of development. We're at the
All right.
beginning
We're
of
at the
it,
beginning. Yeah.
right? So those are strategies that we're looking at. You got your young professionals and your people who are making these new jobs. Hopefully they're looking at some of these areas and looking to invest and buy homes in them. Because you're not going to really have anybody who has a job that's out of date that's going to be able to keep up with the inflation of that. You're going to have people who are able to keep up with that job market inflation to be able to really keep up with those homes and keep neighborhoods traditionally kind of in the same demographic that they've been in. And we're talking about that because what you don't want is for people to have to be pushed out, but it's about these neighborhood groups and these collective of groups who are able to say we're homeowners or we live here and we advocate for our space and we're watching out for that. And so that's why neighborhood associations, which that area is very strong with them.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, you might want to criticize people in office, and you always going to have some type of criticism because they're people who make decisions. But I'll give props Vop Osley, what he's tried to do, because that's his area. Has created this property tax freeze for 55 and older residents who own their homes.
I
And
remember
it's
that.
like an experimental type of thing, but you're talking about one of our most vulnerable demographics when it comes to housing, and our elderly being able to establish their fixed income for a short time. So while things might be developing around you, you have this ability to be able to at least try to adjust to it. But make no mistake about it, you're still going to have to make more money or have
Yeah.
your people get together to advocate to why how much your property taxes are going up. And there's
Yeah. Because
not only that, there's ability for you to talk to the assessor to make sure that they're on point. Like, just don't take your bill and say, okay, it is what it is. Like, you can contest some of your property taxes and what's going on if you feel like there's something wrong with it. And so trusting our community members to be able to advocate for themselves and giving them those tools that we set up system wide to be able to advocate is another push that's going on. So I mean, to bring it all around, that landscape, if we do not pay attention and focus to the changing climate, particularly financially, then we're going to be moved out of our historic neighborhoods. And so it's going to take people not only in organizations that are paying attention to that because it's a part of their job, but that neighborhood advocacy piece and that community activism where we're getting people together, we're trusting each other, and we're having our voices collectively being heard. That's going to be the main important piece, because if you don't say anything, things like what VOP was trying to do, or just other organizations that are around there, can't advocate for you as well. And so we're going to have both of those working together.
So as a voice who is screaming out, and as you and I do what we do, we say a lot and we advocate for a lot of people. The challenge is who's listening.
Yeah.
And you find that we can do a whole lot of stuff, and 9 times out of 10, by the time we've said it 10 years ago, and no one really listened to us, and then it happens, and then that's when we're supposed to be the heroes to come in and swoop down and say there's an issue, but we addressed the issue 10 years ago. How do we break the mode of that and get more people to listen when people cry out with urgent messages to say we better get in front of this or it's going to be too late?
Man, so
I'm sorry I made you lean back.
You good, bro? Because I had to, there's a two-pronged approach to it. Those of us who have historical knowledge and the ability to see kind of what's coming and how to get people together, with the new tools that we have, back in the day it was journals. Back in the day you had to write a book, but now you can have, sessions like these that are recorded and put together. Just leaving something for people who are interested in it to be able to get back to, because somebody might be into something today and might be very interested in the conversation that we're having a year from now or 6 months from now. And their interest right now just isn't there, but something happens within the next 3 months, 6 months, or a year that gets them interested. Leaving something, breadcrumbs for them. That's one piece for those of us who are aware. But then second, we need to do a better job of connecting everyday life to some of the issues that we're talking about, because it's very easy for you to go to work 9 to 9, 2 different jobs, a household to feed, and not even pay attention to like 3 or 4 houses being built, within your area. If you drive by that street, you end up finding out about it. Whereas you brought up and knew where to bring up some of those housing and the development that's happening in the housing that has increased.
Sure.
Yeah, some people just really ain't got no time for all that, right? So how do we connect it in a way that makes it appetizing for people to see? And I think it's hard to do for, like, let's just say your show is hard to do for citywide. It's going to take like residents in the Riverside area to kind of have their own system of communication and being able to do outreach for people who are in that area who can't come to neighborhood association meetings or don't look at the pamphlets that might be passed out or listen to the news. So we're looking at leaving those breadcrumbs, but we're also looking at trying to break it down and reaching people where they are. Because as long as you put it in their face, that's our responsibility. What they choose to eat and digest, I mean, the world is changing. You're going to see something. You're going to want to know what's going on here eventually if you're paying attention. Not too many people got their head in the sand. I just feel like they're just too busy trying to live a life.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. Ibrahim Tanner says, I think people are listening, but they have 99 other problems. People tend to deal with issues as individuals that need immediate attention. We scattered out here running the rat race. I agree.
Hey, listen, I mean, you never know. Look, man, I meant to look up what the inflation on these housing over here around me is, and you come home and your furnace is broke, and it's cold outside. Like, what's the immediate attention? And you have some of the things like that happen to you week after week, and it ain't your job to look up the inflation for the housing, right?
Sure,
how that's why I like what we do with social media. We put things in very simple ways for people to be able to go out there and get it. But I think the bigger issue is something that you raised, like, how do we make sure people are just paying attention and know what's going on? And that's just what I know from you is that you're just never going to give up when it comes to speaking out about things that you have your opinion on, that are destroying the community or things that actually help the community. You give us both, right? And I don't see you quitting. Like, we just need a more youths coming in here and just being able to speak their truth and being courageous enough and vulnerable enough to be able to go back and forth with people who disagree, because that's community as well. But just putting your voice out there and speaking, we have these platforms that just help people to digest it so easily that it's up to us to kind of like just translate that. But you're right, man. Abraham's right, bro. You gonna come home to 2 or 3 problems after work, and definitely if you got little ones in a family, like, all those things, we're actually learning more work-life balance to where those things are more important than work. It ain't just a person go to work and just come home and everything's taken care of at the home. Like, that home life, you got to work just as hard during your work life, and you only got a limited amount of time to do that. And so we have to be understanding of that too. Like, people just don't care and they just lost and whatever. Like, people are working and they working on their own thing every day.
And then it's kind of multi-layered, because we look and find that then there are, and we don't have to go there, but my brother Tyrone Chandler, shout out to Tyrone. He believes the wrong people are speaking for Riverside. He said, no boots on the ground, but others with good intentions thinking they know what's best. So let me say this. I've seen it in some communities where people who kind of know the lay of the land, who are able to speak to the politics of it. But here's the sad thing I see, brother, is that they take advantage of it too.
Oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden they get in it, and then they figure out how to get get them some property. They figure out how to raise some rents and some stuff so that they can get paid on the demise of their own people. I've seen it. And so I'm like, I'll ask this because I asked this yesterday. How do we get the right people in play?
Ooh.
How we get the people with the hearts of community, who don't want to see people leave the community, who don't want to see grandma lose her house that she's had and paid for, and all of a sudden the taxes make her lose her home. How do we get those people into play so that our communities are not overtaken?
So I feel like I want to answer this question in two ways. Maybe I want to start by challenging and saying that there may be not a such thing as the right people.
Okay.
Anybody,
I like where you're going.
Anybody that kind of gets up and wants to speak for neighborhoods and figures out how to maneuver to where they benefit, because of course this community work doesn't pay, and you got bills to pay every day. There's not one person who doesn't pay bills, right? Like, so they are the right people because they stood up. Now, are they doing the right things with the platform and the knowledge that they have? That's one thing that, you can push. I've seen, particularly in that community, and what Tyrone is talking about may be true, because there needs to be younger, active people that are able to see further than what maybe our elders can see about what's coming and what's happening. And what the abilities of a system can do. So you may be thinking you're doing something right, but all of a sudden you're like turning your power over, and you don't understand what that is. And so if you can take advantage of this grant that's coming out, and this grant is supposed to be for your neighborhood, and you're using it for your business, and you're using it for you, then that's good. But if you're not telling somebody about it, and you're not having these meetings and putting together a plan, and this is something that I learned a couple of years ago about putting together a calendar of grants that come out that's your interest.
Okay.
Right. And so now you're not holding and hoarding that information. You know it, you're the right person for it. You come to these meetings all the time. So let's start every neighborhood association understanding what resources are out there to help their neighborhood, and then working towards that, and then working with your politicians to advocate for you. And sometimes working with your politicians means getting in their face and telling them what they're not doing. Like, that's working with
real
them.
talk.
They don't like it. They busy people too. They got bills to pay too. But in that position, they're there to listen to you.
They're your voice.
Go ahead, bro.
They're your voice. You vote for someone to represent. That's what we have to understand, that they are representing you. They're not autonomous agents. They are actually your representative. Those people that you vote for are supposed to go in that room and speak on your behalf. If they're not speaking on your behalf, you need to find somebody who will. That's the part we got to get.
Whether you vote for them or not, they're speaking on your behalf, right? And so to get it back there, you have people who know how. You got people who have these politicians' phone numbers, who see them, who go out and have dinner with them and lunch with them, and it's not on some shady stuff. They just know that that's how you stay in front of people, and you get their attention, and they advocate for the things that now everybody's going to have different interests. Sure. So that's when we start getting into power, we start understanding how to influence, and you're going to be motivated by your interests, whether it's youth, whether it's trees, and whether it's dog leashes. If your interest is dog leashes and you love dogs more than you love the youth and the children, then that's what you're going to advocate for when you're in front of these politicians, right? That's right. And so that's what I mean by there's no such thing as the right person, because anybody that gets that type of knowledge is going to advocate for the things that they have. I think what we really need to be concerned with is how are we as a community holding people accountable, and do we understand ourselves the main topics that we need to be focused on as a group? Because when you have an individual who knows and you say, okay, that person knows, so that person is going to be our spokesperson, then what also are their motivations? That person knows that person's our spokesperson, but that person's about to try to put speed bumps on every single corner of our street. And we need it over there, but we don't need it over here. So then where's the accountability? So just like the politicians, you get in their face and they're voted in, and no matter if you voted for them or not, the people who you're looking at as spokespersons, you need to also identify them and have the same types of conversations with them. I mean, this is community work. This is what it means to work in community and develop in community, is having some courageous conversations with each other and understanding who are the loudest voices, and also not just standing back and allowing them to talk, because they're going to push their initiatives whether or not it helps you or not. And so not only is it the politicians, but it's the stakeholders and the gatekeepers that you have to understand and know their motives, just like a politician. And so that's a piece that I think, Tyrone, he's been in the game for so long, bro.
Long
So
time.
he done went through the good, the bad, the ugly, and
Facts.
he went through it when it was a time when organizing, you had to organize or your community was going to be destroyed. Like, it
It's
was
real.
no other choice. Now it's just a slow burn, but it was a very quick and fast and eminent domain. They could change the neighborhood within 2 years. Now it's taken 10 and 15 years for it to change. So he sees it. And so I understand where he's coming from. But I definitely would say, if there's somebody that's out there speaking up, it's up to us as well to hold them just as accountable as we will hold politicians.
Sure. And Tyrone, I mean, I'm just thrilled to show this stuff, because it's crazy that this house is on Dexter.
Okay.
I want people to see this. This house is at 2130 North Dexter, $345,000. That tells you something. And the crazy thing is, maybe, from a family perspective, maybe it's time that we create the situation where people invest in these properties collectively, in order for us to stay in these types of, or to at least own these properties. We need to collectively work together so that we can own this type of property to keep it in our communities, or to keep the communities as ours.
Yeah, we have to have as a community more conversations about building trust and generational structures to be able to hold assets, because we're understanding that that's one, how you keep assets, and two, how you use assets individually. We've been learning how to buy homes, or I got my own home and things like that. But there's these estate builders and planners that are out there that can teach you how to build an estate and a trust, to where you're holding these things within your own family's name and you're building your own wealth, and you're not having to have this generational kind of aspect to it. Like, I had a friend of mine ask me a question that was so crazy, and because I didn't have an answer to it, and it was about, what's your number to retire? Like, what is your number that you have in mind to retire? Like, what do you have that number right now? Have you figured that out based off your lifestyle? And give me 5 million, cool, I'm cool. But like, have I actually sat down and like looked at how much it actually is gonna take for me to retire? And then second, how much income and I'm actually making that's passive.
There you go.
And so if I'm not understanding either one of those things, which this is a recent question, which I'm not, I wasn't ready to answer, right? So I'm sitting here in the nitty gritty of it all.
Most of us are not.
So it's real interesting, because I don't see that house going down in value
Not
unless
at all.
something traumatic happens within that area, right? Like, that house is like, it's going to be valuable because it's building up.
It'll be 500,000 in the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think we're going to be looking at some $700,000, $800,000 homes here soon, and we have to understand that that's coming sooner than later. Right now, like, it's not just about to hold steady here for a minute. There's a lot of people who lost a lot of money during the pandemic. They trying to get that thing back right now,
all the way, all the way.
And all the wars and stuff that's happening, all this stuff feeds a system of output that the money's going to from the top to the bottom. So, how are we preparing to make sure that we can keep these things, or we can use them? I mean, get that home, and collectively, that's what I'm saying. Like, 5 of your buddies get together and get that's gonna be something that's equivalent to what our parents and our other generations were paying. But you're establishing some type of assets for yourself, whether it's a percentage. We're cool with owning a percentage of a business, but not an investment in percentage of a property. That's something that's a mindset that I think we need to, unless we're in a real estate game. Like, we're in a real estate game, then we're okay with that. We can own a piece of the real estate and do that. But as community investors, there's a lot of people who are homeowners who get together and create these clubs to make sure that they stay vigilant with their assets and their property. There's some things to be said about how we can make sure that that's embedded in our communities, no matter what type of lifestyle that we need to live. So if you're
Yeah.
coming home and working those two jobs, how do you still understand the value of putting $2 into this investment so you own 0.2% of a house that we're trying to buy over here that's going to be worth $700,000 here in about 10 years? You know, like
Yeah.
those are just going to be some games that we got to play of understanding, but also trust. Like that takes trust, and that's another
Yeah.
conversation about being vulnerable and trusting in our communities that we have. That's been tearing us up more so than a lot of things internally. It's like, who do we trust even with our family, and how do we
Yeah.
use that to make sure that we like work together? You know, that's something that I want to build a little bit more of
So
for ourselves.
so I'm gonna ask this. I'm gonna chime in on some comments quickly.
Okay.
Um so I saw, 300K for a paper mache home with no brick and no basement. Crazy, I know. Bigger picture, family, even with a elected politician of your voice. Um, where we're going with the message. It's like, tell us to go investment or ownership. Well, that's that. I mean, I think you can't separate them.
No.
You can't just say, okay, it's just the investment, because you're still going to have to do something to kind of diminish the bleeding in some sense of the word. You're going to have to still fight to be like, are there some provisions so that people can keep their homes? One. And then on the new stuff, then we have to invest in that too. It's not separate, it's both. And then Anthony Hampton said these properties are taking over every inner city neighborhood. A lot of the former residents of these neighborhoods now live in low income communities. Are there any plans for development and redevelopment for low income communities, what we call the projects? Here's the concern that I have there. What's low income? That's a humongous question, Hamp, because when it's all said and done, with inflation hitting 6 or 7 times, what the heck is low income? I talked to somebody about this. Low income now, a low income home right now is probably about 170. It's like real talk. Well, a low income home is about $170,000 from what I've heard from people. And so when you look at that, it's still like, again, taking that number, 3 out of 10 black people, 30% of black people in Indianapolis own a home. 30%. 70% of white people in Indianapolis own a home. So 7 out of 10. So, and then we ain't even talking about the homes they own that they don't even live in. We're talking about the homes in our community that they own. So it's a real big picture. So here's the other question I have for you, brother. Are we the face of our own gentrification, or are we becoming the face?
Yeah.
Because I look, and this is no knock to nobody, but I had a conversation with some people, growing up in the Hallville area, and I saw the Belmont Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one of my last conversations was like, y'all not keeping that beach. I'm like, the statistics say that 80% of black people can't even swim. Not only that, that water is rough water anyway, but we know that's gonna get smoothed out. But it's like the system knows how to pick certain individuals to become the belief system of the community. And then they get out there and they do all these things and say all these things are changing for the greater good of us, only for them to get swept under, and then the community is taken. And it's like black people have become the face of their own gentrification. Tell me your thoughts on it.
So, again, when you got we got people who want to come up and be spokespersons for your community.
Yeah.
And you have people who have been vetted by community members. It's like, yo, I trust them. They know what they're talking about. They can get up there and they can speak for us. They get certified. If you do not understand how to navigate these shark infested waters, what you're gonna find yourself doing is being frustrated, being overworked, and then having to take collection or connections with entities that don't mean you any good. They just look at particularly properties as valuable, and we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that this valuable property stays within a certain amount of control because it is within an area that is of interest. And so you take Belmont Beach, and I know the people who work with Belmont Beach because that's in our area where I work at, and I've been seeing that plan go on. You have some very rooted, vested community members who are a part of that group that's trying to tell that story of what Belmont Beach was and trying to reinvent what it was as well, because it was known as two different entities at two different times, and now there's a
Facts.
new one.
Sure.
And the work that it takes, the volunteer work, the non-payment work. I mean, when you got a group and an organization that says, hey, you know, we want to help to invest in this area, and then you see the development going on, you can see the writing on the wall that it can be taken over to a point where it's not meant for the people who are advocating and brought attention to it at first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a capacity issue with our community to be able to have stake and ownership within a public property.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we're kind of looking at the two different conversations when it comes to housing and initiatives like Belmont Beach, is that one would be private property and one would be public property. What is our community plan for public property when it comes to advocating?
Mm-hmm.
I've never really seen a neighborhood organization group have a strategic plan. You know,
Nope.
I'm using these words, right?
I'm
About
with.
public property within, what are we doing with this area that the public uses? That's, you know, who's responsible for this? How much is going it Belmont Beach needs a lot of work because of it's got it was ignored for so long,
Totally ignored.
and
Yeah.
it's a part of the river. So you got a lot of people who are trying to advocate for more activities along the White River and the canal and all these things. And this was an area that was just totally just like, well, this little corner right here, we just gonna scoot this over. That's that little dirt that you scoot up underneath the couch, you know what I'm saying, and just forget about. So now that there's attention to it, now that there's a story to it, now that community members who are mostly Black and brown have brought attention to this area, now people are focusing on it. So it's like, okay, what can we do? There's people who get paid to figure out what can we do with public property.
Sure.
Your community does not get paid for that.
That's right.
So it's it's a catch 22, because you know we're gonna ask people who are, you know, probably living check to check or don't get much compensation for the community work that they're doing to put money into a public infrastructure. You're going to use entities who are actually built to kind of house money for public infrastructure to be able to fundraise for it. And so you end up giving a bit of control and agency once you have to take someone else's money.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
a little bit. Some
Yeah.
of it is total, some of it is just, but once you have to go after a loan or a grant, some form of your asset when it comes to that land, you're giving up some type of agency.
Mm-hmm.
Our community members, particularly our young community members, have to understand how much agency you're giving up once you sit down at the table and start talking to entities that don't live in that area and have a different version of what that asset means to you.
Sure.
And that's a strategy that, you know, you can be very bold and brash when you're in these rooms and talk to them and say you will not do that. Or you can, you know, you can come and sit down and say, okay, what is your interest? These are our interests. How can our interests align so that we're moving it forward? Because what we want to do is have a spot where children can learn how to fish and have a nature hike in the middle of the hood. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is my neighborhood and this is where I grew up, and we can walk down the street and have a nature hike and see hawks. Like, you can see hawks and animals and stuff right there at Belmont Beach. You know what I'm
You
saying? So
can.
it's a nature preserved area that can give young people experiences outside of kicking cans and shooting basketball on the court. That's right there in their neighborhood, you know, and that's the beauty about Indianapolis, is that you got a lot of these within neighborhoods that are considered, you know what I'm saying,
I agree.
they're invested in, you know,
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
got a lot of these nature pieces that's there. So I say this, man, it's the same thing when we was talking about the politicians, man, the people, the young people, anybody that's in front of you trying to establish something for a public place. You need to have that on your agenda for each neighborhood association meeting. You need to ask people's opinions about what to do, but also you need to think about the resources that you're using. It's hard to ask people to give up any type of resource when they're living check to check. But just think about, if this is as important as we feel it is for a public place, and we need to put that message out there on why it's important. $2 a month, $5 a month from each household over there to invest in that. Make sure that you don't have to give up any agency for grants. But we all know we're going to have to depend on some type of help in that way if we're trying to find something to move fast. You know, we ain't trying to have nothing 20 years from now and then all of a sudden we can have a grand opening. We're trying to do this in 2 or 3 years, and that's going to take those resources. So what are we willing to give up? And what are we willing to advocate for not giving up whenever we talk to entities that don't live in that area?
We were way behind on the parks. You know, it's like by the time we looked and they said, man, we putting 20 million in the Douglas, we putting 30 million, 20 million on Riverside, we putting 20 over here. We looking like we thinking, oh, and they like, nah. That's part of the change.
We were waiting for the right Daddy Warbucks to come through. We was waiting for the right, pocket, and we wait for the parks in the city. I mean, we wait for national, grants and national funding to come out. Like we don't necessarily move unless there's a pocket or a pot to pull out of, and so we have to wait until it's important for someone. Which is another reason why our political officials are just so important in their interests, because it takes those initiatives are connected when it comes to politicians and businesses. Like they work together to form what the initiatives are for us to be able to go out there and fund. And that's where we have to pay attention to. It's not necessarily who is up in there, but who are they representing really? And they give you a little hint here and there about what, like they don't want to really hide their hands too much. They gonna tell you a little something about what their interest is, whether or not it's on their website or whether or not it's in certain code words. But that's what happened. Like we're so late because that's when the investment came, when it came to public infrastructure and parks. And you're right. What do we do to make sure that we keep a plan in place for that? One of the things that happened in Riverside, they did the Riverside Master Plan. Yeah, and, it was a lot of community involvement into it. At the same time, there's a couple of people who would say that plan would lead to more gentrification and displacement than any other initiative that's going on over there. And so while we got a bigger landmass than Central Park in New York, right there in the west side of Indianapolis, we're just now understanding how, as a community, let me just say this. Some of us within community are just now understanding how to motivate each other to collectively have a voice on what happens within the public spaces in our city. And I know we all don't understand our collective power when it comes to a lot of the things that happen, particularly publicly within our city, and the resources. Like we can talk about the TIF funding and how to access TIF funding and what just happened with Broad Ripple Recreational Center
in
that area. And those are people who really know how to work the system, who got they TIF got snatched, you know what I'm saying? So that the investment can be paid for. But then at the same time, where was the writing on the wall? Because I don't know if anything illegal actually happened. It was something that was just valuable. So while we're talking about this investment in the resources, for anybody that's listening out there, if you don't understand TIF funds, that could be a whole nother conversation that's been used for development, including 16 Tech.
It makes Carmel. Carmel would not be Carmel without TIFs.
We got like those are resources out there that community members have access to or have agency to, that we don't have enough of a voice in to be able to understand how we can move a little bit quicker with some of the dreams that we have.
So a couple comments. Tanner, he was like, if black people are the face of gentrification, we only represent the mask. That other group, where to push policy through. Once the benefit is theirs, they take the black mask off. I say it all the time. I say, this is a Greg Meriweather quote. I say, the best way to hide white supremacy is behind a black face. It happens all the time. And we don't, and the crazy thing is, it's like people will battle you. You'll be like, bro, I see this happening. And you'll have some good knockdown dragouts simply because of it. Shauna Majors asked, is it too late? Is it too late to get on board with the development piece? I don't think it's too late. No. I just think we just have to be severely intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a very good question. But it's never too late, because what happens after development is redevelopment. This
Facts.
development, you just don't build something. We ain't got the materials yet to build something. Just leave it alone. Plus, we're not the type of people to just leave something alone.
That's facts.
And then going back, that remove the black mask. I ain't removing nothing. White supremacy.
No,
We get fooled by the white and white supremacy.
all
That's a
day,
mindset. You know what I'm
all day.
saying? So,
By the
but I
time
do
we
know,
put something together,
understand what bro was saying. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like,
I feel
I
it.
ain't saying that he wrong, but I would say we don't look at it as if this is a black person acting within a white supremacist. White supremacy is a mindset, and white supremacy is about domination and making sure that it's mine, and it feeds into the capitalistic mindset, and
Yeah,
it does not agree with community pieces in place.
yeah,
So when we use that term, we use it, and it don't matter who's in front of it. But when you got these people that's in front of you, like, we have to build community in a place to where you understand somebody's motives.
yeah.
Yeah.
For real.
That's gonna be what we got. We got the vet, we got the filter, and we need to make sure that we bring up spokespersons, not just
Preach.
because nobody is speaking that a person feels like they can fill a void, because that's when everybody got their own. I got my own initiatives that I want to see. You see
True.
me up here speaking, I'm talking about things that are personal to me, you know what I mean? But I was raised in a household, and I was raised in a community where one of the most personable things about me is about how I am, because we are, it's
Hmm.
about understanding that my emotions and my moves have to connect to the collective in a way.
Yeah,
It's movement like the Borg, but it's not the Borg mindset. I got my own, mind and things like that, but I'm moving towards the collective at
yeah.
all times. So I'm always asking for the collective. I'm always asking. I can't say that I've done everything 100% right, and that I might not have done something that was in line, but there's also a piece to where I'm looking at some of the work that my parents done, and I'm saying, you know what? Here goes a way that I can improve and innovate on some of the work that my ancestors and my elders have done. And
Tell
so,
me about that, bro. Tell me about, we got a few minutes, but
mhm.
I want you to tell me about just your parents and how they've instilled this information into you, because a lot of people don't get that. Most of us, I think my parents did what they knew how to do. Cultural awareness. They were my parents from the South, uh, you know, 2 generations probably away from slavery. And when you look at it, it's like, okay, how do you get what did you get from yours, and how do you share that information, or how do you help us get more information like the information you got as a young man?
Ooh, so it's personal, because my parents were very intentional about a lot
Hmm.
of things that they did when they got together.
Hmm.
They both were together creating that UNWA, that United Northwest Area Association. Like, they got together in community work. And so that that the glue for they whole existence when it comes to being together was about advocating for community, especially my mother. My mother, she a fighter, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so and she loves people, she loves children,
Hmm.
loves children. So what you saw was them set up systems intentionally to be able to support a family and community. So with that, you had other people. I am a very privileged young black man who was raised in the 80s in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Very privileged. My parents were married. So when I was born, I had a two-family household. There were books in my household. I had other households of married people and community people that I could go to their house and feel safe, and also know that there was eyes on me, making sure that I was living up to my family name. There was an expectation of being a person within community. And my family centered a lot of our teachings around Afrocentric thinking. So they went back to a lot of different roots of culture from African tribes and African traditions that rooted us. And so that's why I have an African name. That's why we celebrate Kwanzaa. That's why we do things that were intentionally put. So not only was my internal household in a different form because of the books and the parenting that happened there with the two parent household, but I had other households that I could go to,
The
And
village.
then they made sure we went to martial arts on Monday, dance class, African dance and drum class on Tuesday. Wednesday was family night. Thursdays was martial arts. Friday was family night. Saturday we had some activity. I'm like, they kept us busy within
Regimented.
ourselves
Yeah.
and within our community, you know.
Love it.
So when you were talking about that, there's a lot of people in this nation that grew up like that. And
Sure.
so, and at the same time, they're building that infrastructure within themselves, and they're also doing co-ops. My mother was working at IPS and education. My father was working in community development with nonprofits. You know, so they were also in their professional setting doing things that fed community, that teach people, that educated people. You know, so when you have that type of building, you know, you just have a strong foundation to be able to stand on. So now I'm able to look at it at a privileged aspect of things, because I mean, I still went through the 80s, you know what I'm saying? I had to go through everything that was going on with our communities there. Like we weren't, you know, living in, and we definitely stayed in areas where, you know, it was going down. But at that same time, it was different. Our household was different. The people in our neighborhood treated us in a way that, you know, it was safe, you know, and you had to earn your stripes and do your thing as a family on the neighborhood, you know, on the block. But then, you know, most of the people who I grew up with are family right now. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying? From that 40th and Carrollton and Guilford and Winthrop streets, you know what I'm saying? We over here and we all family. It ain't gotta be blood. And that's because we understood community, but they didn't grow up in the same way that I did, but there's still that sense of community that's there. So it's a
Yeah.
you know, it can translate in different ways because we're naturally supposed to go there. It's just about
True.
that trust, you know. And so my family established a sense of trust that was foundationally brought over from African traditions, and it ended up being something that a lot of people could relate to, and that's how we built this family and this community that's here. Now, for me, it's my job to look at it and say, okay, cool. We understand how to talk to each other. We understand these traditions. We can get around each other and celebrate Kwanzaa, and we can say Umoja, and Umoja means unity. But then my generation and our job and the generation after us is now to take it to the next step. We talked about all the things we talked about today. So now how do we take these teachings that we were brought up with and incorporate them into some impactful action kind of movements that deal with community sense? And I'm going to use agency a lot. You know, like, what are we giving up when we work with other people? You're going to give up something. And so
Something.
it's good to have an internal piece of collective understanding of what you want that you can hold strong to, and enough people to say what we're willing to give up and what we're not willing to give up to work with others who might not have been a part of our collective group. So I hope I'm giving you a bit of history about
No,
the
I love it. I love it.
aspect of what my parents did, but also what we have to do as the next generation of taking what those things were built and moving it past that.
If you can do anything, I was just looking at the principles of Kwanzaa, and I'm like, why does this have to be celebrated in this one aspect? Why can't this be daily?
That's not what it's supposed to be.
Okay.
You know,
Tell,
I was taught that the Kwanzaa principles are a lifestyle. So
thank you.
while we may bring
Thank
marketing
you.
attention to the holiday, and get distracted by some of the things that maybe happened to Malanga Karinga and the founder, and some of the things that the US organization of Black Panthers were doing, we need to understand that history, but we need to understand too that these principles were put together. And I love the way the principles put together. You're talking about coming together with unity. And that's striving for just saying, hey, bro, me and you gonna get together at 9 o'clock and we're gonna have this conversation. Like we just decided, like you pushed it out there and we came together and we did this. And then we determined, you know, saying who we are. When I had to sign into this Zoom into this cast, I had to put my name down so that my name shows up right there. So
Yeah.
we first decided to come together, unity, and now I had to describe who I am, and that's Sibeko. And I put my name down there to make sure we can be identified. That's Kujichagulia self-determination. And then collectively, we're working together and we got a responsibility. You're the host, and I'm here answering questions, and I'm bringing my expertise and my knowledge here. So that collective work and responsibility is happening, you know. And
Hmm.
then cooperative economics, we've given jewels throughout this whole talk that we're doing for an hour that people can pick up. So those
Sure.
are those resources. That's that cooperative economics. You know, I could give you $5, you can give me $10, and we use that to work. Or you can spit some knowledge and I spit some knowledge, and then you give me some work. You know what I'm saying? And then you got to come through and understand what our purpose is. And you've asked purposeful questions to make sure that people understand how we're doing it. And then you and I both brought our swag. You know, I got my hoodie on, but I'm repping you got your, you know what I'm saying, that
No
blaze
doubt.
on. It looks good. You know, you got to
Oh
put some
man.
creativity into it. And then the way we speak, the art, the way that we, you know what I'm saying, move, like, you know, the delivery of this means that we bring it to ourselves so that it's personal to us. And then we just got faith that this is going to be listened to by the right people. You know, I just went through the 7 principles of Kwanzaa on what we're doing here in this hour. And you can do the same thing for everything that you do in your life. And that's why I love Kwanzaa and what it represents, because those 7 principles help you to guide kind of what you do and how you push. And so that's why I'm always going to push for that, because that's something that was created by us. Even if it was a West organization, it was created by us, but it was intentional and community building. And that's why it's year round. That's why it's 365, that you're looking at how do you utilize these principles in your work and your personal life, because it is built around community building. Look up the Watts revolution and what happened with the Watts. And those principles were used to give a display on how to rebuild a community after an event like that.
Sure.
Like, so that's where the foundation of Kwanzaa is from. You can Habari Gani all you want to, but you don't know how to like utilize something that's given to you from a traditional. I mean, the harvest festival in Africa is about celebrating when you plant a seed and the harvest come, when there weren't any supermarkets and stores like that. You had to celebrate that. So Kwanzaa is about celebrating your harvest. And so when you put in that work for these 7 principles, in the 4 minutes, we're gonna be done with this, right? Like we gotta celebrate the fact that we put in some seeds and we sowed this. This is a harvest celebration of what we just sowed within the past hour using those 7 principles. And so see that model right there, and just that's that understanding of how you can use those 7 principles year round and put it into a lifestyle. So yeah, it's a holiday to celebrate it, but those 7 days, those 6 days at the end of the year and the first day at the beginning of the year is meant for you to reflect on how you've done this every single day.
Love it, my man. So, man, give me in a minute. Tell me what you're gonna be doing. Tell the people where they can find you.
Oh, bro. So I've been taking it easy this year, so it's gonna be a little bit more for me, but definitely over at 16 Tech, you can come find me if you're an entrepreneur trying to understand a little bit more about this landscape and how to navigate resources. We're building programs and working towards that. And come visit some of those vendors at the N.A.P. They work very hard, and some of them are trying to give you a lifestyle that you're not going to get in other restaurants. But also, you can check me at different community events, man. Melanin in May is coming up over there at Flanner House. You got Cleo's bookstore, Cleo's bodega, and the bookstore Ujama. So you have some.
Hey, how I get my book in there?
I would say take your book and go on up in there. Like seriously, like I could probably get you connected to somebody, but that's the purpose of it. I think there's over 150, 160 local vendors that are in there, so you should be able to get your book in there, bro. I'll help you out with that.
No doubt.
And then just you know, kind of staying tuned. There's going to be a little bit more presence from me coming in. I just had to take some time to like gather myself and create a plan for what I want to do here for this year. I got some big moves. I'm going to grad school. I'm doing a lot of other things here. So I'm trying to evolve myself and get us into some rooms that we haven't been in before, but also understand how to keep our agency while we're in these rooms.
No doubt.
And so I would look at, you know, definitely some of the things that Don't Sleep is doing, like Melanin in May. You got the She event, having that Black Rose festival. You got different other groups that work with youth. And so, and I didn't really answer too much of what you just said, but those are some things that I'm probably around.
You gave us something. Yeah. But man, I just want to say thank you, brother. You know, anytime you can reach out, I'll reach out. You know, we've always we play phone tag, hit and miss. We see each other, we always chop it up. But it's always a pleasure, brother. I thank you for being you. I thank you for what you bring to the table. You are a jewel to our community, brother. And I just, you know, say hang in there and keep doing great work, brother.
All right, thank you. I appreciate you and your platform, you and your voice, man. You keep it up, man. Keep causing ruckus out here, bro. It's all good. You know what I'm saying? It's constructive conversation that's happening out here, man. And keep that thumb, man. Keep that pressure on it. That pressure.
No doubt. Man, it's been Sibeko Jywanza, man. I appreciate you, brother. You have a great day, bro.
All right, I'll be taking it easy, y'all. Peace.
No doubt. Peace. Man, that's our brother. That is he is totally a jewel. And it's just been a great show. Great show again. So, you know, without further ado, we just really jump into this really quickly. But man, Sibeko, thank you. And again, this is about educating our community. This is about us having these conversations with people who know what's going on, who have a vision, who are able to articulate the visions and the things that they see. Shout out to, you know, a bunch of people on here, the Shauna Majors, Tyrone Chandler, you know, Miss Lori. Thank you all. You know, when it's all said and done, there's so many people who are out here who are trying to make it better. Miss Donna Forbes, just always a constant in my ear, and I appreciate her. She's the one that told me to even get with Sibeko. And I, you know, if we had more time, we would have gotten way more deep, because he's just had a plethora of knowledge being filtered through him, through his family. And when you see someone who is raised that way, you definitely want to, you know, bring them to the forefront so that they can continue doing the work that he was put on this earth to do. So without further ado, we get to our verse of the day, which is Proverbs 22:6. And it says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And when it's all said and done, man, he's been raised in a way, you know, when you watch our young people being raised in a way that gives you that says it's not just about you. It's like you are a conduit. You know, the knowledge that goes through you is the knowledge that you should bring into your community. The discipline that's in you is the discipline you should bring to your community. And we have to become better agents of it. So when it says raise a child in the way in which he would go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. We just saw a show of evidence of that. When you raise a child in a way that says, you know what, these are the principles of life. These are the things that you need to do in life. We've raised you to be this way. And then now, as his parents have transitioned, now when you look at this young man who is now an older man, he is now living in the embodiment of what he's been raised in. And we just got to be better agents of doing that. Man, this has been great. You know, I love doing what I do. Tomorrow, we're going to have the loud one, the loud, the tough, but it has a heart of gold. Tomorrow, we're going to have Anthony Hampton on the show. And so it should be another great show. We're going to have a great time with him. I thank you. If you asked a question, how do we help No Apologies Please? We have our Cash App at No Apologies Please. But the other way that you can help this program is by sharing the show. So share the show so that people can get this good information, and we can be the people that we're supposed to be on this earth. It's been your brother, man. Y'all have a great one. Peace.